And we're live.
Okay, I call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Otis?
Here.
Yancey?
Here.
Chris?
Here.
Sally?
Present.
Tor?
Here.
Dave?
Here.
And Richard?
Here.
Okay, do we have any amendments to the agenda for today's meeting?
I do. I'd like to amend the agenda to add staff comments
So, to discuss.
to discuss the Borough Assembly meeting from last night.
Okay.
And I'd also like to amend it before the public hearing items to do commissioner comments.
You already did that at the last meeting.
We already did that the last meeting. We want to.
Yeah, I just have a couple more clarification comments before the public hearing, if anyone thought that would be agreeable.
You do it after, or do you need to? Is it something that needs to be said before?
Yeah, I was just going to clarify exactly how I thought this back and forth was going to work. That was my thought anyway.
Okay.
So I prefer before the public hearing, but if everyone agrees to it.
Thoughts?
Sure.
Okay.
I make a motion to amend the minutes as stated.
We have a motion on the floor already.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You second.
Yeah, second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. The agenda has been amended. So that moves us on to commissioner comments.
And so, yeah, I just kind of wanted to clarify that, I just think that this, we've been doing this process for 2 years, and I just want to clarify that I think that, part of this public feedback and us, re-examining the industrial classification is just part of this process, and I think, basically we're looking for positive or constructive ways that we can change the code to better help people. And so if people can come with a clear ask today, I think that would help us. And either if you want to change the code, change your zoning, but I guess being specific in your ask today would help us, move the process along and basically help anyone who wants anything to change. So, yeah, that was my only thought.
And I guess for clarification, the things that are on the agenda for today in public hearing is recommendations for proposed zoning map for the Borough Assembly. We're willing to take comments on changes to the code at this time, but we're not going to act on anything today on those. So we're not going to vote on them. We're going to collect them, and then eventually we'll have a public hearing on those and discuss those further. So, any other comments? Do we have a motion to reopen the public hearing from the last meeting?
You do not do a motion for that.
We
You
don't need to
just,
do a motion?
no.
Okay.
Just do it, I guess. Just, as the chair, you open a public hearing on a specific amendment, and I believe where you left off, with Mr. Medallion.
Yes, that's where we were, so yeah. So, let's move to open a public hearing on the number 30 on our list, which is the letter from Harold Medellin. Let's see
Where is it?
Harold,
It's page 99.
you have
Harold McDonald, representing myself. Yes, I believe where we were at when you took the 5-minute recess was that we are not happy with the changes to the zoning in my mother's property along Singley Alley, between Singley Alley, Murdoch Drive, and the Slough, which has been zoned in all the 60 years that she's owned the core properties, and all the property that's been assembled to it has always been light industrial, or C1. Actually, if you were to look at the 1984 map that the zoning was based off of, it showed a portion of that as industrial because we had a sawmill on it, but just in the interest of conforming with the neighborhood, we were satisfied with light industrial. And we are adjoined to the seaward by an industrial zoned parking lot. The area's always been used it's always been an industrial area. 100 years ago, there was a big sawmill there. Then there was the Metcalf Marine Waste shipyard across the street. And anyway, we don't want any zoning change from what we have. It sounds like the thing you have that conforms closest to it is light industrial. And that would be, I guess, marginally acceptable to us, but that's the only one that would be.
Okay.
I'll be happy to stay here and answer any questions that you may have about it.
Is there a motion to...
Mr. Chairman, you need to close the public hearing before you can do a motion.
Okay. Then I guess since we're addressing my letter, I also have concerns about property on the other side of Middle Slough, which has been changed to a commercial zoning. That is light industrial property as well. My mother owns a parcel and I own a parcel. And we also want that to be light industrial. Also, Lars Christensen and Danny Christensen and Mary Katas Miller across the Nordic Drive from my mother's place want theirs to be either stay the same as it's been, it's the C2 light industrial, marine related, or to be, I guess, worst case zoned light industrial. And we strongly feel that not having been notified about these zoning changes, we've got a very strong case. And if you're not willing to do it, we'll start collecting petitions to put the thing on the ballot and rescind your new zoning code. So, and I guess that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So, do we have a motion on any of these requests?
No, we have to do all the public hearing stuff, and then according to Robert's Rules of Order, and then we'll open it up for discussion amongst ourselves later.
Mr. Chairman, actually, no. At this point, if anybody else has anything to say about this specific amendment and Mr. Medallin's request, that would be the time for a member of the public to come forward and speak to that issue.
Okay.
At that point, if no one else has anything to say about Mr. Medallin's request, then you close the public hearing. At that point, the commission has the option to make an amendment, to make a motion to amend, a motion in the positive to address Mr. Medallin's request. And then you can discuss that amongst yourselves, ask any questions that you have, and then call for the question and then vote. And once that's done, you move on to the next amendment and open a public hearing again and go to the next step.
Thank you, Liz.
Sure.
Is there any additional testimony?
To this amendment?
To this amendment?
My name is Karen Medallin. I'm also Medallin Olsen. I'm also one of Sigrid Medallin's children. I think it's worthy to note that when you're looking across at the property there, it's not just the houses that are there now. There are a total of 12 lots, and most of them are tideland lots, which is kind of valuable to all of us. And so I hope that you'll do what my brother requested. Thank you.
Any additional testimony? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Do you have a motion?
I move that we close the public hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
For the sake of discussion, Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we consider Mr. Medallin's request to change the lots that he's representing here, absence a letter from the other individuals. I'm reluctant to do that, but for the sake of discussion, we'll include all the lots that he has so mentioned, the change from downtown commercial to light industrial.
Second.
Discussion?
Due to the what came out of the Borough Assembly meeting last night, I don't feel that we should make any decisions on this because until we've looked at the industrial code, I think it's best to wait.
Mr. Chair? I agree with Richard, and then the other thing that I'm kind of concerned about is when we're making pretty substantial zoning changes, I feel that all the adjacent property owners should have an input into it. So I think if we are changing a zoning classification, I think it should go out for our normal process when we get to that point, where adjacent property owners and everybody else can have some input. I don't know, I just feel uncomfortable putting a large chunk of lots into a light industrial classification right in the heart of downtown, because light industrial allows you to do just basically anything except there's really not a whole lot there's not a whole lot of difference the way that I understand it right now between light industrial and industrial. So I'd like I guess the other thing that would help me in this process would be if staff at some point could work up a sheet of paper like was provided for us for industrial, where show us what you can do under the current zoning, which I believe is C2, to what this new proposed code is, and what sort of things they can do and can't do. Because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding on that, and I think it would clarify in anybody's mind, at least mine, on what's actually going on here.
I agree with you. I think making a change from a commercial zone to an industrial zone is a major change, regardless, and it should be notified to the adjoining property owners before that change can be made. And since we have the time with the change in the zoning code and everything else, I think it wouldn't hurt, since we're not going to be approving that as a recommendation to the Assembly immediately. I think it'd be better to do it in that regard. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I had one thought. So I think the Borough Assembly asked us to relook at just industrial, and my thought is that no matter what, I wouldn't be in favor of basically rezoning those industrial. That would make it so they can do an asphalt plant there, just basically things that I wouldn't see as appropriate placement. And so my thought is, I think light industrial at this point is what lends itself to this lot. If he doesn't want downtown commercial, and him and his neighbors want light industrial, I don't see them, even after we rework the industrial, rezoning it industrial. So from my point of view, it's either, I don't know. In the long term, I don't think we're going to zone it industrial. So I think light industrial, taking action on that makes sense to me today. And I'm talking with, my understanding anyway, is anything, the original map as we proposed it, anything that gets changed, his neighbors are going to be notified of this change. So if we change it from downtown commercial to light industrial, the neighbors that are going to be affected by this will get notified in the mail before it goes into effect, is my understanding. So.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Dave.
Is that, can I ask you, Liz?
Yes, you may.
Liz, is that correct?
We can do that. That's not something that we would be had in the original plan. It would just go to the assembly. But since we have time, and I think having seen some of the reluctance that you as the commission and some concerns that you're bringing forward, I think it would be appropriate regardless. Even if we weren't slowing down, I think we probably would have done that anyway, because I can sort of see that happening. But we can certainly work that into the process is the short answer, and do that if you want to do that. And then we can let anyone know that, here was a proposed map that you got in the mail, but since then, someone has come forward and requested that it be changed into this. And we're notifying you that,
And Mr. Chair, I'm not exactly sure which specific, I know the one block of lots that we're discussing. I don't know where the block of lots where the Christensen brothers own, on which side of the street it is.
Right there.
Right there?
it's right here.
And is it just that lot there or that whole block? That's downtown commercial that we're discussing. I mean, I feel reluctant to do those other lots unless we've heard from those particular property owners.
Please.
The Mary Cass Miller is the lot at the bottom of Loma Street. It's just to the right of the Christensen lot. And she is out of town, asked me to represent her at the series of meetings. Lars has left today.
Harold, excuse me. Can I get you to go up to the microphone, please?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that's Mary Cass Miller's property. The one to the left of it is the Christensen property, and they, like us, had their zoning change without any notice to us from C2 light industrial to downtown commercial, and they were like, the preference would be to stay C2 light commercial. However, you people have arbitrarily changed the designation, so the nearest thing that fits is light industrial. So we don't want to put an asphalt plant in, but that's been the character of our neighborhood all these many years. Now, if you go across that open space to, there you go, okay, I own that property, and the adjacent one belongs to my mother, that one, and that we want the same thing. That has been all these many years C2 light industrial, and that's what we're most satisfied with, that zoning. We do not want to be general commercial. It creates a bunch of permissions required to do things that we could do under C2 light industrial and or commercial too. So anyway, we're not asking for a great change. We're actually asking for a zoning to stay the same. Your categories have changed somewhat dramatically, and that's why the only choice we really have is to ask for light industrial. Our preference would be to keep our original zoning. So.
Thank you. Dave.
In light of that, I think instead of taking action on this, I think what we need to do is we need to have Liz work us up a chart showing us the difference between what the old zoning C2 is and because there's two different zoning areas here. There's one that's general commercial and then one that's downtown commercial. I don't see a whole lot of difference between general commercial and downtown commercial, except my understanding is you can do a few more things in downtown commercial that you can't do in general commercial. But I guess in the attempts of clarification and also addressing Mr. Medallin's comments and concerns, that we table this motion until the next meeting, until we get an opportunity from Liz to give us a little bit better, more clarification on the distinctions between these different zoning categories. So I'll be voting against the motion.
I believe that to continue.
Or continue.
Just a quick point.
So, can we look at the actual zoning code right now and just between ourselves do that? I mean, if you're just saying downtown commercial and general commercial, I mean, we have that, I don't know, on page 2.8 of the zoning code, we can just go down that right now and just kind of compare the two.
But we don't have the old zoning code here. At least I don't have a copy of it.
Okay. Does Liz or anybody? Or can we pull it up on the screen up there?
Liz, is it available to us right now, or is it?
It's up to you if you want to pursue and try and work it all out right now, or if you want to do what Dave is suggesting.
Yes.
You guys?
I prefer the wait. I want to see the black and white and have a comparison chart like the one we did between the two zoning classifications. That helped me a lot. I don't.
Yeah.
There's no rush now. We're not trying to get this map done by April 1st.
And also, we've been directed to take another look at the industrial code by the Assembly anyway, so if we were to make a change, then that could affect that as well.
Changes to the industrial zoning would, might change what the requests are, so.
But I don't see us, anyway, personally, I don't see us accepting industrial zoning downtown like that. I see light industrial as a possibility, but like the industrial lends itself to the possibility of an asphalt plant, and that's not what he's asking for, and that's not what we want. So even if we rework industrial, anyway, that's just my take anyway. And I guess I'd like to clarify too, I think like I say, it's already in black and white in the zoning code, like on page 210 or anything, you can just go through and see commercial uses, industrial uses, so it's not a rush. I'm just pointing out, I guess, that it's already in black and white in the zoning code, so I don't think we need to instruct Liz to do it. I think it's already done.
Well, I think if we really want to be able to compare it properly, we need to compare it to the old zoning code and what the current C2 zoning is, to be able to see what's going to fit most closely with what he's asking for. So.
And I think he's done that comparison and said light industrial fits in the best. Mm-hmm. And so unless we want to change what we classify in what zoning code, like unless we want to change what is allowable in light industrial, I don't see why we need to compare it to the old code. Like the choices are the current code, zoning classification. So that's just my take on it.
No, I think the Assembly is asking us to look at possibly making changes to light industrial as well.
They just instructed us industrial. But that could change for sure, but our request right now is just industrial, my understanding. So, if people want more time, that's fine. But I guess my point is I think we have the information before us now, unless... That's my opinion anyway.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. I think Richard and Dave are correct that what could end up happening as a result of the discussions on industrial is that we might end up changing light industrial, and light industrial might end up becoming very much in alignment with what is currently C2, right? And if that's the case, then, I think there would be very little hesitation on your part to possibly rezone Mr. Medallin's property into that light industrial. And I think that's, some of the questions that are being grappled with.
Right.
The new code is not apples and apples with what C2 was. Mm-hmm. And I think what we're hearing back is we want apples and apples. We want, the comparison, or at least very close to what we had before, and that currently does not exist. So it's going to be very difficult to satisfy Mr. Medallin with what is currently in the new code. But if you go through and address that, and you end up rewriting light industrial so it's more in compliance with what Mr. Medallin is asking, then you can actually have a better place to move forward from there, as opposed to having to do it twice.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Well, since we're on the topic anyway, that was my basic question. Maybe it shouldn't be called light industrial, because usually you don't have residential uses in industrial. Usually do not have residential dwellings in industrial, and just about any zoning code that I'm aware of anywhere in the free world. They call it something else. They call it general commercial, or what, they don't call it industrial. So maybe that's part of the problem here. We have a semantics issue. Maybe Mr. Badallan's right. Maybe we should just call it C2 or commercial. Maybe we should have different classifications of commercial, and instead of calling it light industrial, have a different classification of commercial and call it industrial. Because to me, that's real easy to understand. You have an industrial piece of property, you can do industrial things on it. If you have a commercial piece of property, you can do commercial things on it. And they're very different, at least in my mind, but
Is there a question there? Or?
no.
Okay.
So just, I'll shut up.
No, it's fine.
Yes,
I just
but-
wanted
no,
to
there's no
answer if there was.
My thoughts on ones that are tough like this, that might be affected by changes to the code. Maybe what we should do is have a list of what requests have been made. And then we can work off of that list. We don't take action on it at this time, but we list that so that it goes out, the public can see it, public can comment on it. And then as we change the code, once we've changed the code, then we can take up changing the zoning on the map. Thoughts? Any commissioners?
Would you mind saying that one more time?
Basically what I'm saying is we make a list of requests to change on the map, and then and same as we're going to take requests on changes to the code. And we list all of that, and we put it out to the public and say, these are the requests that have been made, and that allows people to comment back and let us know what they feel about that. And then we can take action on this down the road once we've gathered all the comments, and also we'll take action on the map after we've changed the code, because then people have a clearer idea of what they're asking for.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so you're saying that we vote on these amendments, and then we let the public know what's happened, and then if they have any comments, then we'll revisit them, basically?
I think ones that are tough like this, it's very hard to vote on because we don't know what the code's going to be. So maybe we put it down as we direct staff to make a list of what the requests are. So people are requesting that they can do this or change to this zoning, but we kind of leave it until we've nailed down what the code is. It's really hard to say what that's going to be. And it's really hard for people out there in the community to say what they want. So if we do it this way, we'll say, okay, Harold is asking to be C2, even though we don't have a C2, but he wants the abilities under C2. That's what he's asking for. Once we nail down what the code is going to be, then we can better fit where what's the closest fit to what he's asking for. But then people also have a chance to comment on that and say, yeah, I do support creating another classifications closer to what C2 is, or that's my thoughts. Tor?
Yeah, I was just saying, so basically anything industrial, then you're just saying we put on hold until we will, definitively come up with the code for industrial and light industrial.
Well, we take the request and we put it down as a specific request that they wanted to change to something closer to what the old C2 was. And we just notate that so that as we're building and modifying the code and making our recommendations to the Borough Assembly, we're trying to get to those goals. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess I'd be interested to hear from Harold Badallan then what specific uses that he wouldn't be allowed to use in light industrial he wants to be able to use. I guess that would be what we're trying to find out, right? Not necessarily this moment. I guess that's just the question in general.
Here I am.
He's here.
Harold Badallan, once again. You see, particularly what the C2 zoning was created for, that was all industrial prior to the 1985 code. And C2 was, in the 1984 comprehensive plan, the need was expressed for the new South Harbor was being built, and all this property there would be valuable for waterfront industrial uses, but of a lighter nature than tank farms and things because of the residential character of the neighborhood. And that was acceptable to everyone in that whole neighborhood from Ocean Beauty down to the South Harbor parking lot. And now that it's been changed out from under us, without our, no one had any heartburn about asking us before changing it. But anyway, so now we're going through this. So one of the things, for example, my warehouse is a machine shop and blacksmith shop, welding shop that was built in 1930 as such, and I still use it for those uses, and that would be a conditional use under light industrial. I presume that I'd be grandfathered in because I'm not going to stop what I'm doing. Boat building, repairing shipwrights. My father, you probably read my letter, my father fixed up his first little boat on the grid down below his warehouse on the slough. He years later did another boat in the yard. There's a couple of boom boats sitting there right now. That's the kind of stuff that we do and have always done. Those are things that are not allowed under downtown commercial or even general commercial. So, we want to be able to continue to use the property as we've used it. And the uses, granted, are going to change over time. My mother has rental properties, and over time it got harder and harder to get paid the rent on time without, she finally turned a couple of them into bed and breakfast, which have worked out terrifically, but I'm not saying that's going to be the final use. I mean, long-term vision plans we made, it's a valuable piece of light industrial property right adjacent to the north-south Harbor parking lot, which is zoned waterfront industrial. So I don't know if any of you own that, if you would give up your zoning that allows the maximum latitude of uses to put in a welding shop or a boat shop or anything like that. But, when the shoe's on the other foot, things are a little different. So that's what we want. We've been happy with our zoning. We did not request it to be changed by you guys. You didn't contact us. I'm not trying to be difficult here, but that's how the public is.
Yeah, well, do you mind if I read off? You're correct on that conditional use. So if you have a machine shop, you need a conditional use, but if you'd be grandfathered in under this, so as long as it's continuous use, you'd be allowed to continue your machine shop. And then under light industrial, boat building, repair, shipwright, and related process manufacturing, they're all permitted use. Metal manufacturing, welding is a permitted use. Loading, dock, storage, including storage of vehicles, boat, warehouses, wholesale distribution, cold storage, except self-storage or mini storage, those are all permitted use under light industrial. And so, reading your list of things you want to be able to do in the permitted use in light industrial, they seem to mesh up pretty well. I don't see much any uses that you would like to be able to do that aren't permitted under light industrial the way it reads.
Well, yeah, except you guys are objecting to changing it to light industrial, or as near as I can tell. That's my problem. We're happy with the C2 zoning and whatever restrictions are. That allows everything from residential uses to the range of downtown commercial uses and into light industrial uses, marine related under the old code. And that's how we've envisioned this property. That's how I bought my property and paid through the nose for it. And so to have you folks arbitrarily change this, you can understand my heartburn about it.
Yeah. And I guess that's just my clarification. So the list I read off is allowed uses. Do you have anything else that you'd want to do on the property that I didn't include there? I would like to have the entire range of commercial uses just as allowed under C1. Like I could, under looking at this list, the chart in the new code, which is kind of, you have to thumb through it, but
under the new zoning, the only semi-industrial use that I could see was we could have a newspaper office. Most of the others were not permitted. So anyway, so what you guys have arbitrarily saddled us with doesn't fit our desired uses. But we would like to have the maximum range use. We're not going to put an asphalt plant in. There's not that much call for them, or a batch plant or anything like that. It's not an industrial use.
Yeah.
So our uses are waterfront related. We're water-oriented people, and we're not downtown merchants. We're the storefront doing artsy-fartsy artisanal crafts.
Good deal. Okay. Well, thanks.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Dave?
Mr. Chair, after hearing Mr. Medellin, and I mean, it sounds like light industrial fits his needs, and as long as this goes out with notification for adjacent property owners, that's the thing that I'm concerned about. You know, I guess I'm not really, haven't really looked to see what the difference is between what the current zone is and what we're proposing is. I guess I need to study the old code. I've been so focused on the new code for so long, I've forgotten exactly what C2, what are allowed uses and what aren't allowed uses. And I'll be happy to be more prepared in the future, but I can't quote what's allowed in C2 right now under the current code. So as long as we notice the adjacent property owners that this is happening and they have any heartburn with it, then they can, I guess the next step is take it up with the assembly when they go through this process themselves.
I don't believe we're voting on the final map to recommend to the assembly at this time anyway.
So if I could ask, so could we notice the adjacent property owners and let them know that we're considering this change it to light industrial, Liz?
Yes, but you probably don't want to do that until you figure out what light industrial is, correct? And I think that brings you right back to your original discussion, which, again, if you end up changing light industrial, then you've basically changed it to something that is different than what Mr. Medellin is now asking for. And so it's kind of like doing it twice, where just as a suggestion, it might be easier to just not necessarily just table this or postpone it until a date certain in the future when you actually do take up all the zoning map amendments. At that point, if you have adjusted light industrial or downtown commercial or all the industrial zones in a different way, that might make a significant difference to Mr. Medellin. And then, you know, you can make a choice at that point knowing what you're actually doing as opposed to choosing something that might actually change again. Do you know what I mean? I can understand what Mr. Medellin is saying, and I think he's making a strong argument that we need something that's a C2 type use in that area, you know? And light industrial is supposed to be that, but it might have broader uses. You know, that's not what it was created for, but maybe that's what it should be and only used in that C2 area versus trying to use it, you know, in more of the what are currently industrial areas. And I see his point. The question is, you're sort of doing something and then you're going to change the underlying code again, and it seems like that's the same issue that we just had, so why do it twice? You know what I mean?
Sure.
So, just to get clarification, I can't hear Liz that well. So she's saying we might redo basically all industrial classifications, and so then we should wait until we're done with that to rezone this one?
Yes, that is correct.
And
Dave?
So what if we just, how difficult would it be to just call it, just leave it the same? This area, just leave it C2, have that zoning carry forward as it exists now, what sort of issues would that create from your perspective?
You cannot, right? That zoning classification doesn't exist as it currently does in the new code. So that's why I'm saying, if you're going to look at industrial and you want to create that C2, we can recreate C2 in the new code. And we could call it light industrial if you want to. But you have to actually go through the motions of doing that.
Correct.
Right. But at that point, but right now it doesn't exist in that way. So I'm saying if you want to do that, create that and then apply it to the map. But don't apply something and then change it after is all I'm saying. It's, you know.
So you're saying we have to create, we have the possibility of creating another zoning classification somewhere between light industrial and commercial.
Well, no, what I was suggesting is we could turn light industrial into C2, into the equivalent of C2. And so if that is what the commission wants to do and what you're hearing from the public, that there's a need for something like C2 and we don't provide for it, you could turn light industrial into C2 and then use that where C2 currently is. And that way you don't have to, we won't, not that it really is a deciding factor, but then we don't have to spend a ton of time with the attorney and everything else to create a whole new C2 when we actually have a vehicle that we could use for that purpose. It's just not exactly what people want, but we could turn it into what people want.
I'm just wondering if that would affect people that like the light industrial as it's written in the code right now. You know.
My sense is, and I might be wrong, that people are choosing light industrial as the default to protect their residential uses, not because they want it.
Okay.
That's my sense.
Can you mind giving me a quick summary? Is she saying we could just make light industrial equivalent of C2 and just call it commercial 2?
Yeah, but we would have to do that before we changed, it would be best to do that, I guess, before we changed the zoning on the map.
Okay. Because what I hear him asking is not for commercial uses. I hear him asking for industrial uses. Like he wants to be able to repair boats and machine shops and, you know. So he says he doesn't want to sell things. So I don't see that as being commercial.
Dave?
Liz, are those currently allowed activities in his current zoning in C2? Can he have a machine shop? Can he have a boat building? I mean, are those, my understanding is that those weren't allowed uses right now.
Actually, he probably knows the code better than I do, so.
All right, thank you.
So I'll double check, but
okay, well,
I trust what he says because he does know it better than I do, so I'll double check.
Well, and so, okay, so if that's the case, then I agree with you, Liz, in the interest of simplicity that we proceed that direction. I think most of the comments that I've heard from people, that's been the biggest rub. They have homes that are industrial properties. They want to retain their rights to keep them as residents, but they want to do other stuff on their property. So maybe light industrial, C2, whatever we want to call it, that's we try and move it to that direction. Maybe that'll solve not all the problems, but maybe 90% of them.
By doing what?
By looking at the light industrial classification. And a lot of the things that are in light industrial that are allowed, some of them are industrial activities. Maybe what we should do is we should look at restricting some of the light industrial activities and making those strictly industrial activities. I mean, if that makes any sense.
I think the move right now is going to be trying to, I think we're kind of getting lost here in this, that we're trying to do two things at once. And right now, the request is for a change in zoning on property to be closer to C2. I think we should take that and notate that and postpone that till after we've nailed down the code. We can also put in a request that to try to make light industrial closer to what the current C2 zoning is as we're changing the code. Then we can address the code issues first. Once the code issues are addressed, then we can go back to the map and say, okay, let's address the issues of getting the zoning where it needs to be.
I agree.
So I think that's kind of the direction we need to do things, rather than saying, let's make it light industrial now, and then we'll try to make the code fit. Doesn't, I don't think that's the right order to do things in. I think the right order is to fix the code first, then get back to dealing with the individual properties to fit into the categories after we've gotten the code where the community wants it.
My one thing is that I don't hear him asking for anything that's not already allowed in light industrial. And so I don't understand this. I don't see, basically what he's asking for, he'd be allowed in light industrial.
I understand that, but it's I think going to light industrial at this point, before we address the other code issues that have been brought up, because things might change, and then it might end up being, after we've had more input from the community on what light industrial is going to be, then it may not fit what he wants. So I think it's better to hold off until such time as we know what that code is going to be. And then we can say, okay, this is going to work. So. So do we want to amend the motion that's on the table, or do we want to vote on this motion, then do another motion?
I move that we suspend this motion.
Postpone this?
Postpone this until we have continued this until we've looked at the light industrial code at a later date.
Okay. So you're amending the motion to continue it?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Karen?
Sally?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Tor?
Nope.
Nancy?
Yes.
Okay. Now,
Otis?
Yes.
yes. Now, do we have a we're going to do a roll call on the original motion as amended?
Dave?
Yes.
Nancy?
So just to clarify, this motion is to change the zoning to light industrial, correct?
No, this is we've amended it to continue it to the next meeting, is what I assume. So at this point, or till once the code is finalized. So at this
I
point,
thought sorry. That's what we just
voted on. Yeah.
What was the first thing we voted on then?
So we were voting on amending the request to continue it to the next meeting rather than taking action right now.
Now what are we voting on?
So now we're voting on the initial motion,
Which was?
As amended.
which is to say we're going to continue it to the next meeting, is what I'm gathering.
Until after we've
Made a decision.
Okay.
I think it's kind of redundant, but
That's us.
yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
okay. Tor?
Yes.
Otis?
Yes.
Sally?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Richard?
yes.
Thank you.
Oh, me? Yes.
Agreed with that. Did I miss you too?
Yeah, you missed me. That's right.
You
Okay.
did
Started with you.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
thanks.
Okay. So
Sorry.
to clarify, we're continuing this till after we finalize the code, and at that point, we will bring it back up and discuss what the zoning is going to be on these particular properties listed.
You don't want to give him something he doesn't want.
So, okay.
And will we notify him?
Yes. So, where are we?
31.
Number 31.
Back to 31.
All right.
Thirty-one.
I lost mine. It must be on this dial. It's a one-page letter. There we go.
See that letter, does anybody know where that is in the packet?
Mine doesn't go.
It's the last page. In the last week's packet.
In last week's packet?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm looking in this current packet, and it doesn't, we don't have that one in there.
I'm not sure I have that one because I don't have last week's packet.
Maybe she'll read her letter.
You are.
I have it right here.
Oh, I thought, yeah, that might have been.
This one?
The one that was like, that we had last week.
That's the one, right? All of these are last week.
So probably this letter right here, that last page. That one, there you go.
You'd go.
Okay, we'll open the public hearing on Amendment 31. Do we have any testimony?
Is that Carl Olson?
Yes.
My name is Karen Olson. I'm representing myself and my husband. I guess because the actions of the assembly last night, no action needs to be taken. You don't need to, you're going to be not adopting this change. A lot of heartache could have been avoided with, the new changes affect everybody on both sides of my family that are in town, and if we would have received notification with the proposed code compared to the new one, we could have been to meetings before and said what we wanted. Anyway, I just want to say that we live on an industrial tract at the top of Olson Avenue. Our residence is there. We used to have industrial activities going on, rock being taken off our property since 2002. We've dealt with many road blockages, and that hasn't happened. And I just want you to know that we certainly intend to continue living there. We intend to build another home, and we just hope that the industrial land stays the way it's always been for I-1. Thank you.
Good. Currently, as light industrial, does that fit your need?
No, because we have children that might be, using the rock pit in later years. I-1 is what it is. It's a 35-acre tract. My husband's, through the years, has sold timber off it. It's a nice piece of property, really nice to live on. It's very private.
Could we
get
pull
the
that
map
up
up?
on the map, Karen?
yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm pretty sure I know where it's at. I want to make sure.
Is that parcel there?
I believe so, right? Got the right one?
Great.
Yep.
And, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
the parcel to the right there, the large parcel that's RL, that's the one that we already acted on. Mr. Mergerson changed that one to light industrial.
I have a comment on that. That's a greater change, and it would seem like notification would have to go to property owners on that. That wasn't something that you were changing the definitions on.
So that's what notices are going to go out now, correct?
Yeah.
So the original map went out, and now we're going to send out notices to adjacent properties, letting them know that we have adopted these changes and we have an opportunity to comment.
Liz, can you please answer that?
Well, actually, I wanted to say, if you guys are going to talk, then you need to, finish with Ms. Olson and then move on and have a motion and have your discussion, as opposed to starting the back and forth discussion. And Mr. Benson needs to be acknowledged and allowed to speak by the chair and not just interrupting people. What was the question? I'm sorry.
Would notification be sent out on any of the changes that we are making, that we have made at the last meeting to the adjacent property owners?
I think, as we mentioned earlier, that we can work that into the process. Since we have time and we have a newer process, we can certainly work that in, and I think that would be appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I have nothing else to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there any further testimony in the public hearing?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I make a motion that we close the public hearing, or we need to do that?
No. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. And since we are not, since there's no requested change at this time until the code is changed, I don't believe we need to have a motion to take any action. So shall we move on to...
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
May I make one comment? Due to the large size of this parcel, 35 acres, and its nature, maybe when we're looking at our code and when we're looking at changing it in industrial property, maybe we should have exceptions for larger lots. Something we should look at. So maybe as long as the lot size is over X number of acres, we'll allow conditional use permits of dwellings, conditional use permits or whatever, and still maintain it as an industrial lot. But at such time that the lot is subdivided and I'll just throw out a number under 5 acres, then they'd have to come back before us if somebody wanted to put a home next to a rock bed. If that makes any sense. Because
I think we can get into the details of what changes we'll make to general industrial when we get to that point. But your comments on that, I think that's a good idea. So I think we really do need to rehash the industrial code and try to come up with something that works. So I think there's a lot of input coming from the community on that as well. So I think we can address that when we get to that part of the code. So, all right, let's go back around to
Number 4?
number 4, next on our list, which is the lots between Hagen and South 8th Street from residential to commercial. Is there anybody here on that?
Page. Amendment 4.
That's from Heritage Farm.
Yeah, there's 4 lots, what would that be, on one side of 8 and there are 3 on the other there between Ira and Hagen.
One of those is a church, isn't it?
Yeah, isn't that the
Yeah.
church?
Don't we have a conflicting one in this area? Well, there was another one that wants to make that stay the way it is. This is wanting us to change it to
Development Reserve.
I was a little confused by this one. Are they property owners there? Owen. Mara?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, David.
do they own all these lots?
Liz?
Or any of them?
We need
Can we make a motion?
to make a motion to talk about this. If you're done with the public hearing, I don't know that. Did you have?
Close the public hearing.
Okay.
So,
I move to approve this amendment.
I'll second it for discussion.
okay. Liz? Are these lots owned by Farragut Farm?
No. These 4 are owned by the borough. This one's owned by the borough, and then this one is the Church Bethesda Fellowship.
And the one next to it?
Isn't that,
These are in private ownership. Wilson, Strickland.
Okay.
What's the one next to the church?
that's it?
Are both of those?
Over
open
one.
church?
Over one.
That's also owned by the church, I believe.
Those are both.
These
They
two.
both are?
Yeah, these 2.
Okay.
And they want that to become developmental reserve?
They want to go to commercial.
General
It's
commercial.
East
General
Creek,
commercial.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's
But we've got another one for the opposite.
Is this the only correspondence we have on this one, is this letter?
Mr. Chair, I think we have one by somebody else.
Do we have another letter up concerning this?
Yes,
really?
I read it someplace. I don't know where.
I don't believe so.
You don't believe so?
No.
I don't believe so either.
I thought I only saw the one.
I guess I understand their point just from their letters that there's not much commercial that's available, like on between 2nd and 3rd Street on Halligan there's some that's not developed yet. But for the most part, I think that's the point, is there's just not much open commercial, I guess.
Thank you, Dork. Dave?
Mr. Chair, I'm reluctant to support this because those 3 lots, I believe, or 2 of those lots belong to the church, and I don't know who owns that back lot there.
The borough owns that.
This one.
The borough owns that one? Okay, and the 2 front lots are owned by the church. And the other 4 lots are owned by the borough on the other side of the road, correct? So, for me to support this, I would like to see a letter from the church and from the borough that they're in support of this change before I'd support it.
I don't see, no. I don't see the lots up the hill from that as being all that valuable for medium density residential roads. I see those as being a little bit more valuable for commercial. I definitely support rezoning those to commercial.
The 4 lots.
Those 4 for sure. And then the church, it doesn't really matter to me, but the others, well, the other one, it being borough, it's more of I'd like to hear the neighbor input.
Yeah, I'd agree with Richard. I think the North 4 I'd be okay with. The 3 southern ones, I don't really see the reason unless the owners request it. So I'd be interested in asking the borough what they thought about rezoning the commercial, but I wouldn't be in favor of the lower 3 ones there on 8th.
Do we have stamp copies on that?
I would be in favor of continuing this until we hear from the boroughs what their thoughts are on it, and maybe get some more input from the community as far as what they think should happen with them, since they have their own property.
And those lots too, it is a pretty steep bank there. Like that, they're not very easily buildable upon to begin with. So.
Plus, there's a safety factor of driving off Haugen onto a small little property like that, too. Unless you went to the backside.
I could see those lots getting combined into one commercial property.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
Just like the ones down.
Still, though, going off Haugen is not optimal.
Very true.
It wouldn't be much different than the ones a block down from it, though.
mean the fire hall?
that way.
There aren't any commercial on that road, really?
No. I meant for residential.
Yeah. If they are combined, maybe the entrance could be on 8th or something if we get to that point. But
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, I won't be supporting this motion until we have, but I would say that I'd like to hear more thoughts from the borough on what they'd like to see done with this.
And the church.
And the church, too, yes. So I'll be voting against this.
Any further discussion?
So are we going to call a vote then, or are we going to delay this until we get feedback from the borough?
Unless I get an amendment to it of some sort.
So I amend the motion to request feedback from the borough and make a decision on this at the next meeting.
And the church.
And the church.
I'll second.
I think we need to also point out to the church that they do not need to change their zoning to continue to be a church.
Quick question is, can we combine the amendment with the original votes? We don't have to go through 2 votes on it.
Can you? If it's a friendly amendment? If the seconder agrees? Yes.
Okay.
Yep, whoever seconded.
Do you agree?
I do.
Okay. Karen?
So this is a vote on the amendment then?
This is combined amendment in the original motion.
And we're voting to,
We're voting to continue this to a further meeting when we've heard more feedback.
Gotcha. Thanks. Yeah, I just can't hear Liz like hardly at all. Thanks.
Chris?
Yes.
Yancy?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Sally?
Yes.
Otis?
yes.
And we're missing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to open the public hearing on
Number 7?
number 7. Find the information here. There it is. Okay, this is for a lot in Scout Bay to remain in light industrial.
I don't believe any action is needed on this. It is light industrial.
So, okay,
Right, that wasn't even asking for
yeah, because we
It was just a thank you letter.
We just went through the testimony, and if nobody was here to testify, we moved on. So, if there's nobody here to testify on that,
What are you testifying on?
on no, this is property from John Reed, leaving it on. Yeah,
So he already is light
he's
industrial.
already is like.
So it's a moot
so
point.
It's a moot point, but
Yeah.
since there's no comment, we'll close the public testimony. And I don't believe we need to take any action. So Liz, can we just move on that? Okay. Move on to amendment number 8.
What page is that on?
26.
Okay, thank you.
This is to change a piece of property from general industrial to light industrial. For Dustin Connor.
Doesn't appear that there's any.
What?
It doesn't appear there's any on this one.
We'll open the public hearing. Is there any testimony on this one? Hearing none. We'll close the public hearing. Do you have a motion to act on this?
I make a motion that we change this lot from general industrial to light industrial.
Do you have a second?
A second.
Okay. Discussion?
I move to amend the motion to defer making a decision on this until after we've addressed the industrial code.
Okay. Any discussion at all? Let's do a vote on this as a combined, if that's acceptable with both the person amending and the second. Okay?
Otis?
Yes.
Tor?
Yeah.
Sally?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Yancy?
Yes.
Okay, we're going on to number 9, which is a lot on this Minkoff Highway from low-density residential to public use. Liz, this is the substation from, correct? Okay, thank you. So this is the lot for the substation. I think that is appropriate. Do you have anyone who wants to testify in the public hearing on this? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. I think it's appropriate to go ahead and do this because it fits with the use of the property, and it's not likely we're going to change the definition in the code of public use. So I think we should just go ahead and vote on this and change it.
We need a motion, I think.
Yeah, I'm just stating, okay?
Yeah, I make a motion that we change the zoning classification of the substation to public use.
A second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none. Karen?
Tor?
Yes.
Yancy?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Sally?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Otis?
Yes.
And Chris?
Yes. Okay, number 10, which is a lot on Minkoff Highway, proposed for light industrial uplands and waterfront industrial tidelands. This is for Robert Thorstensen. Do we have any public testimony on this?
That's where the generators sit.
Yeah, that one is, but we're on the next one now. We're number 10.
This is 10.
That's
Oh,
not
that's-
this. So his is down by the beach corner, kind of. So, what exactly is he looking for?
I think in keeping with what we've been doing, I think I make a motion that we approve light industrial and waterfront industrial tidelands, and then we just basically put this on the back burner until
Continue.
Continue until after the code is finalized. Change to the code of finalized.
I'll second that.
That's,
We're kind of stuck doing that with everything that's industrial right now.
Any further discussion on this? We'll do it as a combined.
I mean,
Yeah. Tor?
yeah, I was just going to say that I think, like, basically what he's saying is he doesn't want anything to change either, and it seems like what he's asking in light industrial and waterfront does seem to get what he wants. So he wants to be able to build a house, and he still wants to be able to build a dock on the waterfront, and it seems like he'd be able to do that. So I think, in the end, I think he'll be able to, this looks like it'll fit him, but once we get to rework, I guess we'll find out.
So we've got an amendment as well, so do we want to combine, is it okay with the person who made the motion for the amendment and the person seconding, that we combine these and do it as one vote? So we're voting to continue this to the next meeting. Karen?
Richard,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Otis,
Yes.
Sally,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
and Tor.
So,
Okay. We're on number 16 now. Which is
Somerset
This is to change the lots on Somerset Lane from rural residential to low-density residential. Is there any public testimony on this in the public, hearing?
Where is this? How much, Baptist?
7 Mile.
Oh, 7 Mile.
Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion on this? It's 16 is from the back.
16, okay.
I'll make a motion that we change the zoning for rural residential to low-density residential.
It's right. It's these lots.
Okay, right.
I'll second for a matter of discussion.
I have a question for Liz. What is the current zoning on these lots?
Pretty tiny.
That whole subdivision is zoned single-family residential.
Single-family residential? So it was done, so rural residential is what, we would change it to rural residential from single-family.
It's being proposed to rural residential, right? But as you can see, that those upper lots are really small. They can't be subdivided any further, even under single family. And then the rural residential puts more of an onerous burden on them as far as setback requirements.
I believe we've approved variances on setbacks in that subdivision before, haven't we?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, it's.
There's nothing really built there.
Yeah, they've just started to develop those lots, and
Okay. I thought we had one that was a request.
So I don't think so.
Passed, but I might be wrong.
I think one of the circle.
I thought it was one of the circle down at the very end, not one of the ones that we requested, but.
And so when I'm just looking at this on page 49, it's like 4 lots, and it seems like it might be beneficial for just to combine these 4 lots, and then it would get rid of a lot of that setback issue, because they are small lots. And so if you just combine them, that, or at least combine 2 of them maybe, that might be a better approach for it. It looks like to me.
They're asking, though.
No, but I think that might be a better approach overall, so I guess
Especially the small ones
I'd be
sitting on
more-
the highway.
As I recall in those lots, Liz,
now they have different owners, so
yeah,
it's not one property owner.
yeah,
They've been sold individually.
yeah.
So they actually have the person that's making the request has one of those lots, and that's all. And then I believe somebody else has purchased another one of them.
What's the square footage on the first lot by the corner?
I think that just meets 8,000 square feet.
It is 8,000 square
I
feet?
believe so, yeah. It just barely meets the minimum.
Looks so tiny on the map.
It's like really close, like maybe just slightly under, perhaps.
I also believe there's a pretty steep bank on the uphill side of those lots up toward the highway, so it further limits the development of those lots.
I mean, these lots together are less than 15,000 square feet. If if it's only 0.3 of an acre, that'd be less than 15,000 square feet, all 4 of them together, so.
Well, I think the person's referring to one of those lots, not...
No, what I said is that one person, the person making the request owns one of those lots, but I think they're referring to all of them. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so she only owns one of them.
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Yes, Dave.
So, okay, by changing from rural residential to low density, that changes their setback requirements, correct? Okay.
It also changes their minimum lot size, but those lots are already so small, they wouldn't be able to subdivide them any further than what they are now. So it's really, there's nothing more they can't densify that area any further. So even under single family or low density.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Dave.
Okay, so clarify once again. So my understanding is the only difference is the setbacks difference between rural residential and low density, correct? Since these are already as small as they can go.
That's the only difference as far as the lot development standards, right?
Yes.
As far as, there could be differences in the uses, but what they're speaking to is that the rural residential setbacks put too much of a burden on those small-sized lots that were previously approved by a planning commission. So.
Right. And then my further understanding is there's a lot more restrictions on what they can do in low density versus rural residential as well in the code.
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that.
Okay.
I think you can do more in low density because obviously low density was designed for places that have municipal services. Rural residential is set up for places where you have no municipal services and you might have to do on-site water and sewer, right? And so then some of the options are a little bit different. I don't think there's as many options. I'd have to look for sure to tell you, but I don't think there's as many options in rural residential. But ultimately, those lots are small enough in size that you're really not going to be able to do much more than put a house on it, and then also fit in an on-site septic system or something. So really, I don't think there's much more that can be done. You're just trying to provide an opportunity for them to be able to do that much,
So my understanding that lot size, you would have to have an engineered system. You couldn't have a septic system because they're too small to have a.
That's a DEC question, so I don't know.
Yeah,
I think
that's my understanding.
The person that's developing is in the middle of looking into that. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Okay. Otis,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Sally,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Tor,
No.
and Yancy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amendment 17 is to change an RV park from general industry to, and I've got blank on my page here. Have we received feedback on that? Let's open the public hearing on Amendment 17. Do you have any public testimony? Liz, did we receive any indication on that or what they're requesting? Yes.
I think there's a couple of letters in there. I couldn't quite determine what the request was. So you might put that in your postpone column and just give this person an opportunity to look at maybe the new version of industrial and ponder that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that would be fair.
She lives in Fairbanks.
Yeah. Do you have a motion, we may as well make the motion to continue this till after the code.
So move.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I was just wondering if high-density residential would work for her in the one lot anyway, for what she wants for RV lot. So basically, I got 700 lot, 700 there.
But I think they also want to be able to continue to run business out of there, which I'm not sure would work under that.
You're allowed to have administrative office for like a mobile home park.
They run Bear Electric, right?
And I also want to comment, I think it's the two lots behind it, 140 and 160, are both rock pits. And so I think we want to keep those industrial. Listen.
Dave?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would suggest that when we get around to our definitions, that she look at splitting those lots, because I would assume she'd want to keep those two back lots industrial, so she could develop the rock pit. But no, I agree, we need to talk about this later.
Okay. Any further discussion?
So,
Sure.
sorry, I just couldn't quite hear Dave. So what was the first part you said?
Yes, no, I was just basically agreeing with you, Tori. The two back lots where the sand pit, rock pit is at.
Yeah.
They might want to keep that as industrial, and the one lot where the mobile home park and all that stuff is currently there, that might fit better under a different zoning classification than general industrial.
What would anyone think of an amendment that did make it high-density residential for lot 700?
That's probably be a good idea, but I'd want to have that person's feedback on that.
In her letter, she's referring to 4 lots, including 701, and I don't see where that is.
Yeah, I didn't understand that either.
That's where Bear Electric is, right here.
Correct.
Yeah.
Is she also referring to the lot across the street, across Minkoff Highway?
Is that 701 here?
Didn't we have something come up on this about a year ago?
Yeah. Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yes, no, we did. The lot right next to it, that's rural residential, where currently there's kind of a sand pit in there and a bunch of treasures. The lot right next to it, and there's about a whole bunch of the people around there wrote letters complaining about turning that into from rural residential to general industry. And so we didn't allow that. And that's the lot immediately south.
Because in her letter she says, like, high density is not allowed. And so I think it might be partly confusion on her part on what is allowed, because it can be zoned high density. So maybe clarification might be part of this. It's just she wasn't quite sure what her options were.
And have we identified where 701 is?
Yeah.
Where?
Liz?
701?
Yeah.
That's what she's referring to in her letter.
The one across the street.
That said it was owned by Steve Clausen,
Yeah.
but he's deceased.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not,
240, is that 701 there?
I think so. Oh, fuck, no.
No, it's not.
50.
I think those were the only 3 there that she owns.
Yeah.
750.
I'm not sure what she's referring to.
Yeah. Any further discussion? Karen?
Sally?
Yes.
Yancy?
Yes.
Otis?
No.
Tor?
Sorry, what's the motion again?
The motion is to continue this.
Okay, no.
Richard?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
And Chris?
Yes. Okay. Going to number 19 now. And this is for O'Neill, the properties that are next to the cold storage, yes.
Next closer.
And it's waterfront industrial. Since this is again in the industrial, I would think we should continue, but is there any public testimony?
I think they're herring pounding.
Hearing none. Close the public hearing. Dave?
This is maybe one of the best examples of why you don't want to have houses next to an industrial zone lot, because, correct me if I'm wrong, Liz, we spent about $30,000 insulating the compressors on the community cold storage as a result of noise complaint by the two adjacent neighbors on industrial property.
I think it was less than that, less dollars than that.
All right.
But maybe $30,000 in headache.
Again, because it's going to be affected by whatever changes we make to industrial.
Well, the cold storage will stay there even
Yeah.
if we,
Yeah, but if we change the industrial, it could affect what
They
you know,
can or
can or can't do. And I think it would be better to wait on this one.
I agree.
Yep, I need a motion.
I make a motion to postpone any zoning changes.
Second.
Continue?
Continue.
Yeah.
Continue, yes.
Yancy?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Tor?
Yes.
Sally?
Yes.
And Otis?
yes.
Okay. Beginning packet, have any,
The giant letters.
I have down at the bottom of my list here, we got two letters in concerning the Skylark property.
Is that number 20?
No. We've got two new letters in dated the 18th that are in my pile here.
19?
So those are not on our, because they're so recent, they're not on our packet. I think we should take up those.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
are they available online?
the letters?
They're in
Liz?
front of you.
In front of,
Oh, in front of us, okay, thank you.
Don't we have
I got a lot of
action
stuff in
number
front of me.
Don't we have to do action number 20?
number 20?
Yeah, that was, on my list, it wasn't completed. Amendment number 20.
Amendment number 20.
It was an incomplete on my list.
Let me see.
It was from the Mabsons.
Okay, yes.
Yes. We're waiting for the feedback. Let's come back, let's finish.
Do this.
Do we want to do the Skylark first, or do we want to go to Tony first?
Mr. Chair, I
Yeah.
found the letter, so let's do the Skylight before I lose it.
Which one is this? 20?
Yeah, we're doing the letters on the Skylark property. So let's open the public hearing on the Skylark property.
And what number is
What
it?
amendment are we on?
We're on, it's not a number anymore. We received 2 letters about the Skylark trailer park
Gotcha.
and the new letters. So we'll open the public hearing and...
Hello. I'm Amber Burrell again. The last time I was up here, I was a little bit taken aback because I just thought it was kind of like a come in, oh, okay, and away I went. So I didn't have a lot of documentation with me. Unfortunately, Liz and I couldn't locate some of it that's buried away in boxes, but they exist. There's changes that were supposed to be made years ago that never did. I've decided, in light of our last conversation, that I'm not going to pursue the industrial anymore for one of the parcels at this time, because I don't know what I'm going to do with it, so I'm just going to leave it high-density residential, or I'd like it changed to high-density residential. And if you look at those maps, you're going to see 2 things. A lot of empty, vacant lots, already platted, already utilities to them in Severson subdivision. We do not have a need for more subdivisions, and if we do, they're readily available for people to be able to develop at a lot more cost-effective than I am going to be able to do it. We do not have public utilities up to the park. We pay for our own streetlights. We pay for our own road maintenance. It's all on us. So developing that to residential standards is just really not a viable option for us. I think we talked about this at the last meeting. We had comments that people were upset about a trailer park being there. Well, the trailer park's been there since the 60s. This is not a new thing. Every person moved into Severson subdivision knowing there was a trailer park there. I was not able to find the planning and zoning meetings to state what the notes were, or everyone that got up and talked. The hunters, who no longer live there, wanted it to remain a wildlife sanctuary. Well, it's not and never will be a wildlife sanctuary. And then Joe Nelson complained because on Pearl F Street, which is 2 streets away, he thought it was going to lower his property value. Well, if you look on the map, he's quite a ways away. We've got a ravine that we will never be able to build on that separates us, as well as that easement and a large parcel that's owned by the borough that will never be developed. So I'm asking, and I know you guys are possibly looking at redoing the industrial code, but I would still like to be in that industrial commercial area, not in a high-density residential area. Residential use is just not a viable option for that property. So I'm hoping that, at least for my 2 trailer park parcels, you're willing to grant me those, and then I will go ahead and keep the 3rd parcel, which probably nothing will ever be done on anyway, as a high-density residential for maybe someday Sally can have a tiny home up there.
So, Mr. Chair?
Yes, Dave.
Can I ask him a
Yes.
question? Okay, so you're okay knowing that there might be some changes to light industrial to put you
because
down
we'll
there?
revisit it at that time.
Okay, thank you.
I just don't want to be, don't make me residential, please.
Yes. Dave. You're done? Okay.
Oh, and I can address the RV park. I will never have an RV park, ever. There's lots of them in town. Leslie's got one that's never full. Darcel Schuweiler is a Burrell. She's a relative. We're not going to be in direct competition with our family. So that's something that at this point will never happen either. know that was maybe a concern that somebody had, but we kind of hopefully know that not cost effective for us.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there any additional testimony? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we change these 2 parcels to light industrial with the proviso that that classification might be changing at some point in the future, so we'll revisit it. But I guess at this point, I'd like to change it to light industrial.
So we're addressing the parcels 675 and 450?
Yes.
Okay. And we'll address the 600 as a separate motion?
I don't think we need to. It's low density right now, or it's high density.
It's zoned low density right now.
Oh, it's low density.
So she's asked me to go to high density residential on that one, so it'll be a separate motion. Yeah.
So then I'll combine that in,
Or do you want to do that as one motion?
yeah, this one. So the 2 parcels, Skylark Way, be light industrial, and the other parcel be low density.
It's low density now.
Oh, but
She's
she was
asking
high density, yes. Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Yeah, you can see up on the map there.
Okay, thanks.
I think Amber is a diligent individual, and she's going to be paying attention to how we tweak the industrial classifications. I think we're pretty safe at changing this today, and if she has any issues with how we change it, she will definitely let us know.
Well, and since it's going to be, we're not taking the final action on the maps right now, we're just trying to get them kind of into shape of generally what people want, with them knowing that it's, the zoning definitions may change slightly. I think that's reasonable.
So these referred to Amendment 24.
Correct.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
Just clarification that the 2 lots on Skylark would be light industrial, and then the low density would turn to high density as amendment.
Yeah, the adjoining low density lot.
Oh, 600.
Karen?
This is all one amendment, correct?
Yes, it's all as one amendment. All as one action.
One motion, yeah, sorry.
Yes. Door? Karen's calling the question.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you. Otis?
Yes.
Sally?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
And Yancy?
Yes. Okay. Let's set that one aside. You're saying 20? What's that?
That was Ken Madsen
Ken Wilson, yes.
and his brother Leonard or something.
Let me see where we are. So Liz, which lots are these?
Oh, right here.
Okay. Okay. Is there, we'll open the public hearing. Is there any public testimony? Hearing none. Close the public hearing.
I make a motion that we continue the discussion on these lots
Until such time as...
at such time as we reclassify the industrial zoning. But I'd also like to point out, oh, never mind.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion?
He is requesting general commercial, according to the giant noise I have here.
Yes, Liz.
Yeah. I think he's in that category of, I don't like what I'm being zoned, and so I'm choosing, the best option. So
The whole area is very...
yeah, so I think you're making the right,
We should defer his?
yes, I think so, yeah. Having spoken to him a few times, yeah.
Yeah, so the motion was just to defer it until we get the classification. Continue it.
Excellent, let's vote.
All right.
Richard?
Yes.
Sally?
Yes.
Tor? Tor, are you there?
Sorry, I hit mute. Yes, I'm here. Yes, on the motion.
So your vote is yes?
Yes,
Thank
correct.
you. Yancy?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Otis?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So,
Sarah.
what else do we have?
Sarah Stoner's letter.
Okay.
It's probably going to be a deferred one, but number 12, amendment number 12,
Amendment number 12.
referring
Well,
to
you're
it.
going backward?
Well, we've got letters in.
Oh.
I think we can keep it there and say that she'd like to, she can be tabled until you guys take it.
Okay.
Redefine it.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have any public testimony?
I don't think there's actually an amendment there. I think
Okay.
she's just commenting on
Commenting?
a
Okay.
desire for fixing the zoning aspect, the industrial part of it, yeah.
Since we're already going to take care of that, we'll just set that aside. And we'll listen to it when we're doing that part of the thing. So,
And then we have Paul Olson.
Paul Olson,
That's something new.
is that a specific request here?
Yes. On Lake Street.
Those are borough-owned lots, Liz?
Yes.
What are they referring to? Thank you.
Where there's nothing.
Yeah, there's nothing right.
Some of that people own it.
Well, I think it's just been platted on the map, but it doesn't, there aren't really roads there.
There's no road, but I think some of it's been
From
probably
action.
sold.
Big, deep rustic gate back there.
Just to clarify, what letter are we looking at?
We're looking at a letter from Paul Olson concerning zoning a section of property that's kind of between the ball fields and Lake Street and over in that neck of the woods where it's borough-owned property. It's not in the packet.
Oh, okay.
Was delivered to us. So are these areas already platted? Or is that just for the intents and purposes of the map?
I think they are already platted.
Some of that property is owned by individuals, I think.
I think along the edge of that, yes, there are some lots that are owned, if I'm not correct.
And some of it's, roadside and very developable.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I think,
Some of it has to have a road, too.
No, I think think what's happening is his hashtags are going into property that already has houses and lots and everything, so it's
Yeah,
getting
I think
confusing.
he went too far up on past Valkyrie towards the water there, because those are developed, but
Yeah, that's what I thought, there were some developed lots along that end.
I think it's kind of hard to see it here, maybe easier here, I guess.
Yeah, I thought there were houses along right there,
He
yeah.
went too far up this way, right? There's houses up this way. But these two, I think, are borough-owned, but then houses here, and this is private, but, so I think he went up one block too far. So,
But those are all
these are
platted.
all borough here, all the way back.
And those are all platted already?
So these with the lot lines are platted. These, there was a plat, but it was never recorded. So no on those.
Okay.
Isn't some of that property owned by private people?
Not back in here and not
I
any
think
of,
the city sold one or two of those lots a while back.
it was over here in this block. But from this platted street back in here, this is all borough property back into here. And I believe all of this is also borough property, all these lots behind those houses.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
No property. That doesn't.
I think, Liz, before I could make a comment on this, I'd like to hear what the borough's feeling on this, since it's their property. I mean, I don't know why we even need to do this, to be honest, because before you guys would develop it or sell it, it would have to go out to a public notice type process, so everybody would be notified in the immediate area. Is that correct?
Before it went to sale,
Yeah.
I think it does get notified, yeah. Yeah. For the ones, yeah.
So that might be the appropriate time for them to have any comment on it. Otherwise, I don't see why we need to change the zoning on it to open space, because it's kind of de facto open space right now until the borough decides to do something with it.
I imagine that he's thinking if you had to go from open space then back to residential, then there's two hoops to jump through and not one, right? To get it into some development status.
And especially on the ones that have already been platted, the borough's going to be expensive platting those.
Actually, those were platted by the federal government, I believe, so, or the state, so I don't think the borough did it.
Some taxpayer did.
Somebody paid for it.
Some of that land was surveyed by the survey class in high school and platted it.
Mr. Chair?
That's been a
Yes,
long
Dave.
time ago.
Liz, when we were looking at selling some of those lots, or somebody wanted to buy some of those and it came in front of us, wasn't one of the comments that those are substandard sized lots? According to the current code, not even the new code we're proposing, not the big ones, but all of these, yeah.
Which,
I don't know, maybe the ones we changed were farther down there, the really small ones.
Any ones there?
Yeah,
Way down?
way down, farther down.
this way?
No, the other direction, all the way down towards,
There.
do we sell like 4 of those
Oh.
lots?
Oh, over here,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm not even sure that's part of what he's proposing. He's even.
No, I know, but I'm just wondering if those were,
It was actually further, right? I think they got,
Go one
Yeah.
street further.
yeah, it
No,
was John Swanson.
it was John Swanson. Yeah, so I think they got,
Those ones behind them, yeah, that right there.
Yeah, there you go.
yeah. No, see those, I think Mr. Swanson replatted there and might have absorbed into what he bought into his,
You absorbed the Matheson property?
right. And then, let me see, is there something? Yeah. So whether these are substandard?
Yeah, that was a discussion at the time, if I recall, that the lot sizes were too small.
It's not good discussion now.
I know.
Yeah,
I
those are
mean,
probably 50 by 100, so some of those are small. These look like they're probably legal. These look like they're probably on the smaller end. Get rid of that.
We have a motion?
I don't think it's really necessary. I wouldn't mind hearing some feedback from the borough, I guess, on this. So I'll make a motion in the positive to change the lots that are owned by the borough to open space.
I'll second for matter of discussion.
I think it ought to go into houses. It's going to happen sooner or later.
I mean, nobody wants a road behind their house and more houses, but, you know.
But when you buy the property and you know it's zoned that way.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Dave.
I'm going to vote against this because I'd still like to hear feedback from the borough, but that's the only reason I made the motion. But I think, the one thing that Petersburg has that every other community in Southeast Alaska doesn't have is we have a lot of buildable land. It's perhaps the best asset that we have in this community is anytime we run out of land, mental health or university will just put more on the market. So it's not going to run out in our lifetimes and probably our children's lifetime. So I think it's, I'd like to see some of that land that's in town eventually developed as possible if it, if the town does grow that way. So I'm not going to support this motion at this time.
Any further discussion?
I'm just going to say, I actually my first house was on Galveston Street right there on back this area, and I know exactly why they would like to have this open space. You got a beautiful view out the back of your house and everything. But I was also told that muskeg is really deep back behind those houses, and I don't think that they have a problem of that being developed anytime soon. But I don't think it's a good idea to put this as open space.
Any further discussion?
I don't think it should be open space either.
Otis?
No.
Chris?
No.
Dave?
No.
Sally?
No?
Yancy?
No.
Richard?
No.
Thor?
No.
That's it.
I think we have one other one from Dennis and Kelly Jones.
Oh, right.
I think that's Sarah, that
Yeah.
you guys can do that.
They resolved.
Yeah, I think we just put that letter in with when we started talking the industrial zoning. So,
I think we killed a tree.
all right. So that closes the public hearing items. We have added to our agenda staff comments concerning
You
the...
actually have a a motion hanging out there as far as the map. I would guess you'd want to postpone.
The map for the,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So since we're still working on the map, we have a motion to continue the map until after we address the issues in the code.
So move.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
So what motion is that we continue in?
We continue the map till after we address the issues in the code.
Okay. So would we still be taking people, like, public comments then at the next meeting about the map?
If people want to put public comments in, but I don't think we'll take any action until we've addressed the code.
Okay, gotcha.
So. Karen?
Tor.
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Sally,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Otis,
Yes?
and Chris.
Yes. Okay. Staff comments concerning the meeting schedule for the changes to the zoning code. Liz?
I just put this on the agenda so you could talk about it since you had no other way of talking about anything. So
Yeah. So, I say, have you got any thoughts on what our timeline should be on this?
not particularly, but I think we should decide on a schedule so that people know what the dates are. We could put those out in advance, and then they can plan accordingly. I think that is helpful since everybody is moving hither and thither, this time of year. So
I don't see any reason to rush this through. I think it's better to have it out, have plenty of time for people to make comments, and I think it's plenty of time, once we've brought in a bunch of comments, for people to comment on the changes before we move forward and recommend it for assembly. That's my thoughts. So I see this stretching out over 5 meetings, 6 meetings, something like that. What are your thoughts?
Sounds good to me. I think we should be cautious and careful.
I noticed the one hang-up that seems to get people on industrial lots is just that if their house burns down, then they can't rebuild. So I think if we just added that you're allowed to have a residence on industrial, I think that would, I don't know if we'd have any comments actually about the industrial changes other than that. So I think with that one change, I think we could simplify and receive a lot less comments before.
Well, we're not taking any action on it today. We're just trying to...
No, that's just a statement, though.
Okay.
And
So,
I think that there's a couple other changes to the code in general that could be made as well to make it better.
okay.
Mr. Chair, I think since it's in everybody's mind right now, sooner than later would be good. I know we have a meeting on the 9th of April. I'll be out of town, but I'll be able to call in. I propose, if it works, next Tuesday noon, that we have a discussion of that meeting solely dealing with what we just talked about, changing the zoning classifications, tightening them up.
You're talking about a work session?
Well, we could have an actual formal meeting, I think would be better, so we could have a process where we could receive comments and then close the discussion and then have a discussion with ourselves versus a work session. And we could actually take action on it. And then, then we could forward that to the borough. It's going to be drawn out because for them to change this, they have to go through, they're going to have to change an ordinance, and that's going to take 3 readings. And with all the budget stuff going on, realistically, we're probably looking at next fall before we see any resolution on this.
I think that having the Borough Assembly wade through, we make a bunch of recommendations, and then have the Borough Assembly wade through it, it's going to put a lot more burden on them. I think it's better for us to take recommendations for changes to the code, make those changes publicly known so that people have a chance to comment on it at our level. We can kind of hammer something out down here where we come up with something that's going to work before we send it up to the Borough Assembly. People still have time to comment on it then, but at least that way we get something that, when it gets to the Borough Assembly, is pretty well what the community wants, and people have had plenty of chance to comment on it. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I agree. I wasn't saying that we'd be done at a meeting if we had it next week. It would just be the start of the process. But no, I agree with you 100%. I'm just talking reality that that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I don't see the Borough Assembly wanting to take this up until late summer or fall. So I've kind of, because I think we need to kind of just work through it over quite a period of time. If you want to start the process while it's fresh in people's minds, next week I'm available and I'm willing to do it. So, other thoughts?
Amber had a comment.
Amber, can you come up if you're going to comment?
I don't know that comment.
We'll let you make comment.
I'm speaking for myself, but I think I can speak for I think you have a lot of people that are kind of have this energy. Don't wait months. Like, they're here, the people that kind of are the squeaky wheels. I think that with maybe one or two more meetings, you've got the letters, so maybe someone could wade through them and, kind of see where there's discrepancies. There's also another spreadsheet that's kind of been going around that I think has really helped to clarify, because Liz used big words that we're not familiar with. So once you dumbed it down a little bit, it answered a lot of questions for a lot of people. And I think now that we've got that going, I think that it's not as far off. I think the residential on industrial is a huge point of contention, and then some of the uses are secondary. But I don't think it needs to. I mean, personally, I don't think you need to drag it on for the next 6 months if you can get people while they're here and excited about it. And before everyone leaves town again.
Yeah, I was just
Can I say something?
Please
Come to the mic.
Microphone, state your name.
Well, it'd take me an hour to get up there, but I think everybody can hear me. I've been here since 1958, and I bought property in Scow Bay, and now I'm hearing that my greenhouses, I can't even give away a piece of vegetable out of there, and I'm upset. This is not what Petersburg is like. This isn't the realm of the town or anything else. We're more of a take care of each other and watch out for each other and do the best we can. Most of these, that older fellow right there is the only one I really recognize here, and these two right here are the only ones I recognize from way back in years when we took care of each other. Please don't get to the place where we can't even have a greenhouse, and help our neighbors, and give away some vegetables if that's what we want to do, and don't screw this thing up, it's just, it doesn't really, I don't understand it really, because that wasn't what Petersburg was like when I came here in 1958. And I've lived here all my life. Been a fisherman. Otis knows. Otis has known me for many, many years. And I just, I don't want to see the place completely changed and, you can't do this and you can't do that. So that's why I came today, because I didn't even realize a lot of this going on. I never got any papers from the city or anything else that they were redoing all the industrial properties and stuff. I had one out there that some engineers screwed up, but Other than that, do a good job. Think about Petersburg. What kind of a town do you want to live in? You want to live in a town that we can't help each other? Poor so-and-so running down the street and you can't even give them a tomato to eat? This is ridiculous. This is what I'm hearing. So if it's not true, then fine. It's just, we get this information flowing at us and stuff, and it's upsetting. It's upsetting for us. A lot of us old-timers that have been around here for years. I don't know. Maybe I'll die tomorrow. Who knows? But, as long as I'm living in a place like this, I think this is the greatest place in the United States to live because people take care of each other. And I don't care whether, how you guys feel about it or anything else. It's just, and I'm sure these two right here could verify what I'm saying. Thank you very much for, listening to me and just, take care of business. Make the town better, not, where we can't do anything at all. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Chair, I propose we have a continuation of this meeting, that we have a regular planning and zoning meeting on Tuesday, next Tuesday.
The 26th?
And discussing
Richard's comments and changing zoning classifications. And if possible, if we could get a PSA out on the radio. I don't know, I imagine, I see Brian here from the pilot. Probably have something in the paper this Thursday to let people know. Smoke signals. Any other way to get the word out?
We're talking what date for this meeting?
26th.
26th. Karen, do you know if the room is available?
I don't know. Okay. I'll go check it out.
Thank you. Before we schedule a meeting, we better make sure we got the room.
Mr. Chairman?
We could have it earlier in the day?
Earlier, what? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is there any way we can have it earlier in the day?
Like it.
Any time is fine with me.
6 a.m.? No.
Karen's got a class then, don't you?
Liz, you had a question?
No, go ahead and finish up with the date and time and everything, that's fine.
I was thinking 9 a.m.
That's a bit early. Very tired.
That's fine with me.
Let's go to bed early.
Can I check the time?
2 a.m.?
Then she can have until 3, so.
I won't be in town, but I can try to make an effort to be in cell phone coverage.
I'm about 75% sure I can make it.
I might not be here.
I leave on Thursday, so I'm here Tuesday.
You're here
I'll
next
be
week?
here? Yeah, but I leave on Thursday, so yeah, I'll be here.
Good to go.
No.
Oh, 9.
I wanted at 9
Now they're
a.m.
talking.
Oh, 9's fine. All day is fine.
Can I just say 10?
Can we do 10? Does that,
Sally would like 10 a.m.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Dave.
I'm serious.
Yes.
Is 10 better?
Sure.
Is that, okay?
Thank you.
Does that work for everybody? Liz?
Yeah.
We have enough people for a quorum?
That's what I was just going to ask Matt.
1, 2, you're here.
Yes, you don't know?
I will not be in town.
You won't be.
50%.
And maybe at the
Sure.
following.
And Sally will be here, so we got 4 at least for a quorum.
Yeah.
So I show Richard, Dave, Sally, Chris,
I'll be here.
Otis,
Maybe.
Thor?
50-50.
Okay.
50-50.
Mr. Mr. Chairman, I was just going to ask, for that meeting on the 26th, do you want me to take that spreadsheet that's been going around that seems to make more sense to people, which I agree, someone did a really nice job on that, and put that in line with current zoning so that you can see what current zoning looks in the new code, and then when people are making recommendations, they're making recommendations from the zoning we have currently.
Yes.
So I think that would probably make it easier for people to understand.
I think it would make it easier for us as well to be able to see what the changes are that are being requested.
So what you would have is something that is our current zoning for the industrial. I'll put light C2 as light industrial, just for argument's sake. General industrial would be our current industrial. We won't worry about waterfront for right now. And then you'll see what our current zoning looks like in the table of the new code, okay, and laid out with the same terminology as in the old
so
code.
So we see what the existing code is, and then what's the code that the Borough Assembly just adopted.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, all I would do was put our current zoning as a starting place. This is what we do now, but I'm just going to put it in the tables of the new code.
The tables of the new code.
Yeah. So if you were to move it forward, it would basically keep us exactly where we are now for industrial zoning. And that would be the starting place for discussion. And I think that's an easier place to start than having to constantly compare back and forth, right? So we could say we're starting where we are now, and then if anyone has any recommendations for changes, we're just we're just looking at it in terms of from what we have now to what they're asking for. Does that make sense of what I'm saying? Okay. Is that an okay starting place? And then if nobody's asking for anything, I would assume that you would just forward that along. Right? So it makes it a little bit easier.
In I don't know, 5 or 6 years I've been on planning and zoning, we've never had to deal with C2. So to be honest, I do not know.
It's a small district. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to talk to Harold if I can before he leaves and see if I could ask a few more clarification questions just to make sure.
Could you include some verbiage on that, or at least bring something that tells me what C2 is?
Well, so what you would get at this next meeting, I will make light industrial C2.
Okay.
So when you look at it, you will be seeing C2.
Okay.
Okay. And I will talk to Harold to make sure that.
To what we have in the book to see what the differences are.
No.
Okay.
Okay. I will give you a piece of paper that shows you the current zoning, but I'm just going to put it in the format of the new code.
Okay.
Okay.
I got it.
And so then anything that anybody's bringing forward would have to be a change from the current zoning, right?
Right.
Okay.
And if there was no changes from the current zoning, you would just forward that to the assembly saying, we're just keeping everything the same, and that's what would happen.
Right.
Get it? So we will be as our starting place, current industrial zoning, and I'll make C2, light industrial C2. Industrial will be under the general industrial. And we have that extra waterfront industrial, which we may or may not use, but I'll just leave that the way it is right now.
Okay.
Okay? Is that just as a starting place? And I think that'll be an easier conversation, because starting where we are now, and then are we changing anything from where we are now?
Okay.
Okay?
I'm not trying to make this more confusing. Can you make us one that's, this could be a separate piece of paper that shows what our proposed light industrial is right now and what C2 was, right next to each other, so we can see what those are? I think that's the answer. I mean, isn't that what you were asking for earlier?
Yes.
Yeah. But I think if you're going to redo it, you're starting from, I don't think it's a bad thing to start where we are now, and not get so confused with.
No, and I can look
See
up.
what I'm saying?
I can look up C2 in the current code and read that and see what it is. But I know the current code is very dense. I mean, talk about big words.
I would just say you actually don't have to do that, because what I'm going to give you on the 26th.
Yes, I understand that.
We'll actually have that for you.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Okay, I got it. Mr. Chair, I make a motion.
I want to bring one thing up. Brad Hutter called me couple of weeks ago, and would like to have another meeting over his plan at his house.
Oh, his 16-foot-high garage?
Well, I think that's what he wants to talk about. There was several things that, well, he'd like to work it out with us if he could. And he would like us to come and look at his property too and walk around it. If we could get that on the agenda of the next month's meeting.
I think Otis is requesting to amend something previously adopted. And so if it's okay with the, well, actually, we have that request in writing. So the plan was we were going to put it as an action item on the April agenda to see if you guys agree to amend something previously adopted, and then I believe take up the issue again on the May agenda. Is that correct?
Right, so that we could do public notice again if you decide to take it up.
So that is the plan, if that works for everyone.
Is this for the Hunter property?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
And he'd like to show you around or come and walk around when he isn't there or whatever. But he liked that too.
Okay.
And maybe he'll have a map that's in proportion this time.
He explained that apparently he had it the same scale, but when it got put in the packet, it got reduced. That's what that's his explanation.
Do we have a second on adjourning? Okay.
No. I'd like to add something to the agenda for the next meeting as well.
Okay. For the April meeting or for the meeting next
Well,
week?
next week would probably suffice.
Okay.
Remember last night how there was some confusion about the definition of a modular home, and then I did some research last night, and you Google it, and manufactured home on Google looks kind of like a trailer, and so I'm going to request that we change manufactured home in our code to modular home. Just do a find and replace in the code, and that actually, when you Google that, it comes up with what our intent was in the code, instead of having this conflicting Google definition with what's in our code. I'm not saying our code's broken, but when you Google it, you're getting a definition that's different than what's in our code.
I think if you read the code, though, it's quite specific on the standards.
It is.
And it would not be, it's just you're just calling something different. Because I think most people think that, yeah, what we're talking about are like, I know what you're talking about. But if you look at the standards in the code, the standards in the code for modular or manufactured houses are quite strict, stricter than probably a lot of the houses that are constructed in town would look to.
Yes, and what I'm proposing is that we change the words manufactured house in the code to modular home.
Okay.
Just so that for clarification.
Yeah, so when you Google it, that Google spits out a result that's similar to what's in our code.
I think we can bring it up for discussion, definitely. So, Liz?
We have very specific definitions in there for a reason, and it's not because it's Google. It's because those are the federal definitions that are used when they're manufacturing those homes. If you change that definition from manufactured to modular, you're going to eliminate quite a number of houses or potential houses that could be built to that standard and fit into that description. So I don't think we should go by Google as our standard for definitions. I'm happy to look at those definitions again and make sure that it is tight enough, and we are being specific as far as manufactured homes, and we're not talking about mobile homes, and we're not talking about trailers. But I'm happy to look at that, but I don't think we should be changing that to modular.
Yes, and that was the concern last night.
Yeah, I heard that concern, yeah. I'd love to talk to that person so that we could explain that to them.
Mr. Chair, yeah, no, I mean, I looked at those standards when we were adopting this code, and I was quite amazed at those standards. And so I think I know what it is, but I think it's another one of these instances where people think we're doing something that we're not really doing because they don't understand the definitions. So it might be good if we have, at an open meeting, we just explain what they are so that people aren't thinking we're going to let people put in quasi-trailers in all residential lots in town. And I think that's a problem with some of the other things that are going on in the code right now. People think we're intending to do something, but we're not. That's not really what our intentions are.
Yeah, so I can put it on there and I'll get the definitions for you, so it's the ones that we're using and where they came from, so it's clear.
Thank you.
Call for the question.
Yes. We've got a motion on the table in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Hey,
All right.
thanks, Tor, for hanging in there.